Hi everyone, I'm continuing this series of the Yalkut Yosef Shabbat Halacha. At the moment, we are in the middle of Siman 271. I believe in the last installment, the connection sort of went over here, so I'm going to start back in Siman 271 on Halacha Yud Aleph. We're talking about eating with unlearned hosts, and we will continue and make progress as we go along. המתארך בשבת אצל מכרים שאינו בקיאים בהלכה כל כך ונסתפק שמה המקדש לא כיוון להוציאו ידי חובת קידוש וכן מי שנסתפק אם קידש או לא אינו מקדש מספק שמאחר ויתפלל לבית ומן הצורה יצא ידי חובת קידוש בתפילה ומה שצריך לקדש על יין הוא מדרבנן ממילא הרבה לספק דרבנן לכולה. So what's going on? Many poskim rule that we fulfill the Torah obligation of Kiddush during the Arvit Tefillot, the prayers over there, since we recite a passage in a Midah describing the sanctity of Shabbat. We are still obligated, however, to recite Kiddush over wine at the meal, but that is no longer a Torah ordained obligation, but only a rabbinical one at that point in time, because we fulfilled it in the Arvit Tefillah. Because of this, when one is unsure whether one has properly fulfilled the mitzvah of Kiddush over wine, one may be lenient and assume that the mitzvah was fulfilled. This is because the halacha treats uncertainties in rabbinic law leniently. One example of this, over here we're talking about how we introduce this halacha. Someone's a guest for Shabbat with a family that not necessarily learned, and he suspects that the host does not have the intentions when reciting Kiddush to recite it on behalf of those listening to him. He might actually feel that the host might not be aware of the halachic requirement. In such a case, the guest may assume that the host does not indeed have the correct intentions, since the guest has already fulfilled his Torah obligation of Kiddush when he prayed Arbit. Likewise, if someone cannot remember whether he recited Kiddush or not, he's mistupak, he may assume that he did, as long as he remembers that he has prayed Arbit. So, since that he actually prayed, it gives some sort of merit within regards to that. ואף על פי שאמרו בפסחים עם קופיות זין שצריך להזכיר בקידוש יציאת מצרים בתפילת ערבית של שבת אין שם זכר ליציאת מצרים יש לומר שכל זה מדרבנן בקרא אסמכתא בעל מהו ועוד שכיוון שאזכיר יציאת מצרים בקריאת שמע ואמת ואמונה ושמח גאולה לתפילה נחשב לו כאילו אזכיר יציאת מצרים בתפילה ויצא ידי חובת קידוש מן התורה ומכל מקום אם יכול טוב שישמע הקידוש ממי שבוודאי לא קידש ויצא ידי חובת קידוש ואם נסתפק אם קידש והדיין לא יתפלל ערבית יכוון בתפילתו לצאת ידי חובת קידוש ויעמוד בתפילה אחת זכר למעשה בראשית זכר ליציאת מצרים. Okay, so nevertheless it's recommended actually that someone in the situation nevertheless it is recommended that someone in this situation find a person who definitely needs to recite Kiddush over someone that's a vadai for himself and ask him to recite it having both of them in mind. If one has not yet prayed the Arvit Tefillah and the questions such as these arise, one should pray Arvit with the express intention of fulfilling the mitzvah of Kiddush. While reciting the passage about Shabbat, naturally, it is recommended that one adds the word Zecher L'Maaseh Bereshit V'Yitziat Mitzrayim over there. Now, Kiddush over bread, can we do that or not? Im ein yain be'ir, or hayayin mazik lo mekadesh lapat. If there's no wine inside the city, or the wine itself is bad for the person health-wise, then you can do Kiddush on a bread, on the halachalot, on the night of Shabbat. V'ye'im yesh mi מהשומעים שישתה רוב רביעית מכוס הקידוש יקדש על היין ויטעום משהו וייתן לאחת לשתות. Okay, so if any family member or guest is capable of drinking more than half a revi'it of wine, one should recite Kiddush of wine, take a slight sip and give the cup to the person, to one of the people over there, to drink more than half a revi'it over there. As above, Yud Gimel, מי שנמצא בחוץ לארץ, מקום שאין שם יין כשר לקידוש, שכל עיינות שם הם יין נסך, או מי שנמצא במדבר ואין לו יין לקדש עליו, וגם אין לו פת, אין לו לברך את ברכת הקידוש שאין מברכים ברכה הזו אלא על היין או על פת. If someone finds himself outside of Israel where there's no kosher wine over there, and could be all yain nesach, or he's in the desert and there's nothing to do Kiddush on, no wine over there, and there's no bread also, no chalot over there, then you don't say the blessing on the Kiddush. We don't make a bracha on something, only on the wine or the bread itself. ודאי, במה שמזכיר דברי שבח בקדושת השבת בתפילתו. וטוב שיוסיף בתפילה זכר למעשה בראשית ליציאת מצרים, ויכוון לצאת ידי חובתו, שמצוות צריכות כוונה. Okay. In this case, though, however, you should have express intentions when reciting the prayer in the Amidah of Arvit that describes the sanctity of Shabbat, that he is thereby fulfilling the Torah-ordained mitzvah of Kiddush. It's recommended that while reciting the passage about Shabbat, he adds the word Zech L'Maaseh Bereshit L'Yetziat Mitzrayim, like above. Now, women, what do? Nashim chayavot b'Kiddush min haTorah. ואף על פי שכל מצוות עשה שזמן גרמה נשים פטורות ממנה. מכל מקום בקידוש היום חייבות מכוח ההיקש, שנאמר בלוחות הראשונות. בפרשת יתרו, this week's parsha actually, זכור את יום השבת לקדשו, ונאמר בלוחות האחרונות, שמור את יום השבת לקדשו. וקיבלו חז"ל כי זכור ושמור בדיבור אחד נאמרו. לומר, כל שישנו בשמירת שבת שמוזהר שלא לעשות מלאכה בשבת, ישנו גם בזכירה. כלומר, שחייב בקידוש. Okay. Women are naturally obligated in the mitzvah of Kiddush, just as men are. We know there's a general rule that women are not obligated to perform mitzvot which are limited to a certain time of day, a certain day or days of the week, or certain date of the year. Although the mitzvah of Kiddush falls into that category, our sages taught us that in this case, women are nevertheless obligated. They derive this naturally from the interpretation of the verses in the Torah, in Parashat Yitro, over there, where it says, in the version of the Ten Commandments, as recorded, the Torah says, remember the Shabbat day to sanctify it. The version in the Torah portion of Ba'at Chanan, which is a different portion in Sefer Devarim, says, observe the Shabbat day to sanctify it. Our sages taught that Hashem spoke these two versions simultaneously. Based on this, they ruled that whoever is obligated in the mitzvah of observing Shabbat, meaning to refrain from performing acts of melacha, is obligated also in the mitzvah of remember to, i.e. mention Shabbat by reciting Kiddush. Women are surely obligated to refrain from performing acts of melacha, just as men are. Since women are obligated to observe Shabbat, they are obligated in the mitzvah of Kiddush itself. Okay. כלומר, ואיל, וגם הנשים המוסרות על שמירת שבת, כי על מצוות לא תעשה נשים חייבות, אף כשן מצוות שהזמן גרמה. ישנן גם בחיוב מצוות זכרת שבת, דהיינו קידוש היום, ברכות in כף, פייג' כף. וגם בקידוש של יום טוב, ביום טוב, נשים חייבות, וכן בקידוש של היום, שנקרא קידושה רבה, בין בשבת, בין ביום טוב. ולפיכך, הנשים מוציאות את האנשים ידי חובת קידוש, הואיל והן מצוות על קידוש מן התורה כמותה. ואף אישה שהתפללה ערבית של שבת יכולה להוציא ידי חובה איש שלא התפלל. ומכל מקום, משום צניעות, נכון שהאישה לא תוציא אנשים ידי חובת קידוש, אלא כשהם בני הביתה. וגם אישה שלא התפללה ערבית בליל שבת, יכול בעלה שהתפלל קבע להוציאה ידי חובת קידוש, שבמצוות קידוש שאנשים חייבות יש דין ערבות. ואמרינן בהו, אף על פי שיצא מוציא, מדין ערבות. Okay. Just going back to where we talked about before. Since men and women are obligated equally by the Torah in the mitzvah of Kiddush, a woman has a halachic ability to actually recite Kiddush for a man who might be incapacitated for one reason or another. Nevertheless, it's considered, let's say, a breach of tzniut maybe, that a woman recite Kiddush for a man if all things are equal, unless it's within her own immediate family. Furthermore, we can add also, men and women are obligated equally in this mitzvah. There's concept of arvut over here. All Jews are responsible for one another, in a nutshell. It applies here also. Therefore, even if a man has prayed the arvit tefillah, and therefore has already fulfilled the Torah obligation of Kiddush, he may still recite Kiddush at home for a woman who has not prayed the arvit prayer, and who still has the Torah obligation in mitzvah of Kiddush over here. Okay, so friends, now we are on halacha 15 over here. We're making good progress. Okay, now we're talking about when no man is in the home. כשבעל הבית נעדר מסיבה מסוימת מהבית, וכגון ששוחה בבית חולים, או נמצא בחוץ לארץ, או שיצא למילואים, וכדומה. אין הקטן שהוא פחות מבעל מצווה, יכול לקדש בליל שבת כדי להוציא ידי חובת את אמו ויצא בני הבית. Okay, so naturally it's a case scenario where the husband might be in the hospital, or he might be doing army service, or he might be in Chutz La'aretz at that point in time. The boy, let's just say there's a boy inside the house over here, he is not obligated by the Torah to recite Kiddush or perform any other mitzvah. It is through rabbinic injunction that he is required to perform mitzvot, so that he will be accustomed to performing them when he is older. Say there's a boy in the house, he cannot recite Kiddush on behalf of adults who are obligated by the Torah to recite it. No one can perform a Torah ordained mitzvah for someone else unless he is obligated by the Torah himself. So we're talking all about a boy over here. Okay, well, the boy is the only man in the house, technically. Okay, הואיל ואין הקטן חייבת במצווה אלא מדברי סופרים כדי לחנכו במצווה. אינו יכול להוציא אחרים חייבים בקידוש מן התורה, שכל שאינו מחויב בדבר אינו מוציא אחרים ידי חובתם. ואפילו מהקטן עדיין לא התפלל ערבית של שבת, ואימו ושאר בני הבית הגדולים והתפללו ערבית של שבת, אינו יכול להוציאם ידי חובת קידוש. You might have thought that if the boy is under bar mitzvah but hasn't done Arvit yet, so technically there's that Torah obligation of saying it in the Arvit, still he cannot be yotze everyone inside the house at that stage in time. Over here. Okay, ואפילו אם כוונו בפירוש לצאת ידי חובת קידוש מן התורה בתפילה, even if he has all the intentions, ואם אין שם אלא קטן, what if the only person is קטן, והאישה אינו יודעת לקדש, and the woman in the house does not know how to do קידוש, שיאמר הקטן לקידוש, then the boy should say קידוש, והאישה תאמר אחריו מילה במילה עד סוף הקידוש. So the code of conduct will be, there's a kid in the house, under bar mitzvah, he knows the קידוש, the mother doesn't. He should say the kiddush, and the mother should say it word by word and repeat after him. So because since she's a woman, she will be as if saying it herself over there. Okay, maturity and doubt over here we're talking about. Na'ar ben yud gimel shana v'yom echad. You've got a child, a boy that is 13 and one day. Shesafek im hevi shtei sa'arot v'chayav b'kiddush min haTorah. Olo has got two. Case over here is, has he got two public hairs over here? This is a physical sign of a child attaining maturity for halachic purposes over here. Is he considered a man or not? Based on that definition. או לא, יש אומרים שאינו מוציא ידי חובת קידוש על הכוס איש או אישה שהם חייבים מן התורה והוא ספק אם חייב מן התורה. We don't know whether he is a full-fledged adult now at this stage in time because of these hairs issue over here. ויש אומרים דאחר שהגיע ליוד ג' שנה ויום אחד יש חזקה שהביא שתי שערות. Full stop period. Someone is 13 and 1 day old. There's a chazaka, there's that assumption, strong assumption that the child is mature enough to do kiddush and you don't need to rely on this specific sign of the two hairs. Even if it's case of Torah obligation, we rely on this enough that it's ken. This is the way the halacha is, the law is. ולכן, כשבעל הבית נעדר מביתו בליל שבת, או שאבי המשפחה נפטר, וקשה לאישה לקדש בעצמה, יכול הבן לקדש ולהוציא ידי חובת עת אימה בשאר בני המשפחה. ומכל מקום, עדיף יותר שיקדש גדול, שבוודאי הביא שתי שערות, או שתקדש האימה. Say the man might have passed away, or the father of the house, or he might be away somewhere else. And you've got this boy that's 13 and 1 day old, and we're not too sure with that suffix if he's got the two hairs or not. Seemingly, he can say the kiddush for the family itself. Over there, we will. But there's. I have to stress in regards to that, if there is an adult in the house over there, or the woman over there, and this boy is in Suffolk, this one that's 13 and 1 day old, better than the other party, says it according to SAKA Edition, seemingly. Now we're talking about the Friday evening of a bar mitzvah boy over here. What's the din, friends? Katan shagdil v'naaseh lebar mitzvah b'leil Shabbat kodesh. Lo yikadesh m'vod yom, k'kol ha'mosifin mochol al kodesh. Ele yamtin ad tzet ha'kochavim v'az yikadesh kiddush hayom b'chiyuv. He should wait, the bar mitzvah boy, if it's going to be on the day itself, say you brought Shabbat in early, till after tzet ha'kochavim, when it's properly night, and then do it. Shekol katan mitkarev lezman. הכניסו לעול המצוות, יש לו להיזהר מצד הדין, לבלתי, יעשה בקטנותו מצווה שנמשך בזמנה, עד לאחר שהגדיל. It's got to be precisely 13 years old at this point in time. You can't do it even a couple of hours early. הואיל בדעת רוב הפוסקים, הקטן אינו חייב במצוות כלל, וכל מצוות החינוך אינו אלא אל על האב. It's a mitzvah chinuch, education one on the father upon himself. So if he's before 13 years old, that is the rule. ומיהו, אם אבא וקידש מבעוד יום, אבל בי שיש אומרים שלא יצא ידי חובה וחייב לחזור לקדוש, ענן בדינן לחיישינן, הרבה לספיק ברכות, ומורים לו תשב ואל תעשה עדיף, ולא יחזור לקדש. Let's say, this boy that's bar mitzvah on that Shabbat, he did it, let's say an hour early. It wasn't ideal what he did. But then you do not have to go back and say the Kiddush again, seemingly, over here. because there's this issue of safek brachot over here, doubt in the brachot. V'yichaven letzet yedei chovat kiddush b'tfilat shachrit lemachrat hayom. You can have intention in mind if you're in doubt over there to say the kiddush in tefillah of shachrit the next day. V'heicha defshad tov shishma kiddush mevi'ah mechuyav b'kiddush hamekadesh achar tzet hakochavim כדי שיצא ידי חובת קידוש בלי פקפוק. אך צריך שיאכול שוב כזית מיני דגן. Okay. The boy should not recite Kiddush again, as we said before, that evening. He should wait till the next day. But the next morning, as he prays Amidah of Shachrit, he should have intention to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush through reciting the passage of the Sanctity of Shabbat. Even better, on this night scenario, say this happened over here where he said it 2 hours early. On the Friday evening after dusk, he should seek someone who has not yet recited Kiddush, listen to him reciting the Kiddush while having him in mind, and eat a kazait of bread or cake in that specific locale. That way, he's fulfilled the mitzvah without location, there's no without question, and there's no doubt at that point in time. Sephardic versus Ashkenazic, we know there's different forms of pronunciation. What will be the rule over here within regards to the Kiddush on Shabbat over here? כשמקדש ומבדיל לאחרים, אין כפיידה על המבטאים השונים. שספרדי השומע קידוש או הבדלה במבטא אשכנזי יוצא ידי חובתה. Even you're by an Ashkenazi's house for the dinner or for Havdalah, and they're pronouncing it their way, you fulfill the obligation by listening. והוא הדין להפך. And this is true also if it's Ashkenazi listening to Sephardi custom. ולכן בני ישיבה אשכנזים השומעים את הקידוש בהברה ספרדית, או בני ישיבות ספרדים השומעים קידוש או הבדלה בהברה אשכנזית, יוצא ידי חובת קידוש והבדלה, שהרי מבינים איש שפת רעהו. Usually you understand what the other tradition the person is saying, whether Ashkenazi or Sephardi yeshiva, the opposite person with the customs is holding. We understand it, so we fulfill our obligations there. ואפילו בקידוש של אל שבת, אין צריך להחמיא לשמוע קידוש מבטא שהוא רגיל בו. You don't have to be makvid even on the Friday night Kiddush to hear from the pronunciation which you are accustomed to. וספרדי המקדש בישיבה של אשכנזים, אין לו לשנות ממבטא שם השם, ועליו לומר כפי המבטא שלנו. ואשכנזים יוצא ידי חובה גם במבטא זה. אחר שהוכח שכך היה המבטא אצל רש"י, הריף, ועוד, and other poskim also. Okay, so we don't have to, and he's just stressing over there that a Sephardi person that is learning in yeshiva of Ashkenazi yeshiva, you shouldn't unequivocally change your pronunciations or your minhagim over there, especially with the reading of the text. Okay, let's try and do some more. At the moment, we're making very good progress today, as we'll continue this. Now, Yutet, we're talking about Hagefen over here. Minhagenu pashut levarech birkat borei pri Hagefen, Hagimel, Benikut Sagol. The custom is to say it with an with a Segol pronunciation over here. And that is, we shouldn't change it minhag. V'minhag loma bore pari pei dgusha. Okay, over here. What's it saying? The common custom of Sephardic Jews to pronounce over the wine as bore priya gefen. Although there are some that pronounce it as bore priya gafen, everyone should maintain his family custom, it's saying here. We're talking about blind people. Soma, Ivet. Chayav b'kol mitzvot min haTorah. Blind persons obligated all the mitzvot in the Torah. V'levichach motzi yedei chova et b'nei beito b'kiddush b'shabbat b'yom tov. V'yesh omrim she'im yesh sham p'kchim gedolim yikadesh achad מבני ביתו לצאת ידי חובת כל הפוסקים. ומכל מקום הדבר ברור שאם דעתו נחלשת בכך שיקדש אחד מבני הבית יקדש בעצמו ויכול להוציא ידי חובת קידוש את בני ביתו. Okay, so what's going on here? Not naturally, blind people and sighted people equally obligated in Torah mitzvot. It is perfectly acceptable for a blind person to recite Kiddush for sighted people. There are poskim who rule that if there is a sighted adult who can recite Kiddush, that person should recite Kiddush for everyone, to avoid all doubt over here, halachic doubts. But if this will cause naturally the blind person to be very upset and belittled over here, he should be recited. He should be honored with the reciting of the Kiddush for the household over there. We should not make him feel bad whatsoever. We should not. What it's case scenario now here, where you can't afford wine. What's the din over here? Im ein yado mishaget liknot yain likiddush v'lachin tzarchei suda lichvod alayla v'lichvod hayom v'likiddush hayom mutav shikne yain likiddush alayla ממה שיכין צרכי הסעודה, או ממה שיקנה יין לצורך היום. ודווקא בשעה צרכי סעודה, כבוד היום קודם לכבוד לילה. אבל אם אין לו אלא כוס אחד לקידוש, כבוד לילה קודם לכבוד יום. Okay. Someone is limited with funds and is forced to choose between purchasing wine for Kiddush or food for the Friday evening meal. What do we do over here? Or between wine for Friday evening and the Shabbat morning Kiddush. He should purchase wine for Friday evening Kiddush, even if that means he'll be lacking food for the meal and will have no wine for the daytime Kiddush. So important to do a Friday night meal on red wine, ideally on Kiddush. The rule that the daytime meal, any grape juice, Kiddush is important. The rule that the daytime meal has precedence over the nighttime meal is true only regarding the food served at meals. Regarding the wine for Kiddush, however, the nighttime Kiddush has precedence over the daytime Kiddush over here. That is superior. Chabet over here. Eating before Kiddush, can you do that or not? Kevan shaka achama be'erev Shabbat asur lit'om klum kodem HaKiddush. Once it's become nighttime, sun has set on Friday evening, you can't taste any food for Kiddush. V'afilu mayim asur lishtot me'shech hashcha. Once it's become dark, you can't even drink water. Aval mutar lirchotz piv b'mayim. You're allowed to wash your mouth with water. Kevan she'eno mitkaven la'anat t'ima. You're not washing your mouth so you've got a bad odor or something in order to drink something to benefit from it. What if you said a bracha, you're about to have this thing, and you remember, I haven't done Kiddush yet. You're allowed to taste a little bit of it. You don't want there to be a bracha levatala, so you're allowed to taste a little bit. Okay. Shabbat derabanan, ho'il u'minagenu, כסברת הגאונים שתקף אחר שקיעת החמה מתחיל בין השמשות ונמשיך כשלושת רבעי מיל. תהיינו 13 דקות ומחצה. ואם קיבל עליו שבת מבעוד יום, נעשה מיד בטעימה. ואם לא קיבל עליו שבת והוא צמא לשתות אחר השקיעה בתוך זמן בין השמשות, אפשר להקל לא לשתות מים להפיג את צמאונו. Okay. Our friends, we're talking about over here. If someone accepts the sanctity of Shabbat upon himself while it's still daylight, it is forbidden for him to eat or drink from that moment until he fulfills the mitzvah Kiddush. Okay, if someone recited a bracha, as we said, and didn't realize he could taste a tiny bit, as we said before, if someone did not accept the sanctity of Shabbat on himself verbally, then during the period of twilight, bin hashmashot, he may drink plain water if he is suffering from thirst. This is the window of time of bin hashmashot. Twilight naturally ends at dusk, 13 seasonal minutes after sunset. Okay, 2 more short halachot here, and then we're going to wrap it up for today. We're talking about concerning children over here. Yesh lechanech katan shegiya lechinuch keben shesh. Someone 6 years old. We should educate a 6-year-old. Someone shelo yachol o yishteh kodem haKiddush, not to eat or drink before Kiddush. Ulam כשיש צורך בדבר, כגון בבוקר קודם תפילת שחרית, או כשממתינים הרבה לאיזה אורח שהגיע, מותר לקטן אף שהגיע לחינוך לאכול. If we can't do that for one reason or another, say for example you've got a guest and they might come late or something and they're very, very hungry over here, then we can be lenient over here. Also in the morning, this is if it's going to be a long, long time. ומותר להאכילו בידיים, ובפרט אם מעריכים בתפילה בשבת. ומיהו בנער בריא, כבן י"ב שנה, וביום אחד. ואלך נכון לחנכו גם בזה. Okay. As we said before, if the family delays Kiddush on Friday evening because they are waiting for guests, it's allowed for children to eat before the Kiddush. So, okay. In this case, it's permissible even to actively feed children over here. You might have thought not to give them. You can run after them, seemingly. And not just allow them to take food themselves. Likewise, it's allowed for children to eat in the morning before going to Shacharit, especially if it's going to be a long tefillot prayers, like in Chutz Haaretz it could be. Once a child is within a year of becoming bar mitzvah, it's best to teach him to wait until after Kiddush, even in cases such as this. They should be makpid the window year before a bar mitzvah. Let's do last halacha for today and then we'll wrap it up. Halacha chaf dalet. 8 before Kiddush. What's the din of it? Mi sheta'ah va'ava v'ta'am kodem ha-Kiddush va'afilu achal suda gemura mekadesh achar kach. Okay. Someone did eat before Kiddush, whether or on purpose or by mistake, he still has an obligation to recite Kiddush over here. ומכל מקום, אם כשהתחיל לאכול נזכר שלא קידש, חייב להפסיק מיד ולקדש, ואחר כך ימשיך בסעודתו. At the moment he realizes he should stop, do Kiddush, and then continue his meal. וכן, אם התחיל לאכול מבעוד יום, בחשיכה. צריך להפסיק את אכילתו. הוא פורס מפה ומקדש. ואם היו שותים יין תחילה, אינו אומר אלא קידוש בלבד, בלא ברכת הגפן. דכיוון דברך קבע בתוך סעודה בתחילה שתייתו. שוב, אין צריך לברך בורא פרי הגפן. קודם הקידוש, ואחר ברכת הקידוש מברך המוציא. ואם אין לו יין ומקדש על הפת, אינו מברך המוציא. ויש אומרים שאב כשמקדש על היין, אינו מברך המוציא וסחווה ברכת להקל. Okay. If he realizes in the middle of his meal that he forgot to recite Kiddush, he must interrupt his meal, cover the bread, recite Kiddush before he continues eating. The same applies if someone began his meal before Shabbat and continued until after Shabbat. If he had already recited the blessing of Borei Priya Gefen and drank wine during his meal, then he should omit the blessing from Kiddush and he should recite only the passage of Vayechulu and the blessing of the Kiddush. If he has no wine, he should recite Kiddush over his bread, but he should not recite the blessing of Amotzi if he had recited it when he began the meal. If he has wine and he recites Kiddush over the wine, some poskim rule that it is necessary to recite blessing of Amotzi for bread after Kiddush over here, despite he's already in the middle of his meal. Even if he had already recited it when he began the meal. So he's, let's say he did Amotzi, didn't do Kiddush, he realizes now it has to do Kiddush, he might have to do Hamotzi again, seemingly. Other poskim rule that it's not necessary to recite the blessing of Hamotzi a second time, and because of this doubt, one may not recite the blessing a second time. They'll lose that zchut, seemingly, this merit, to do it a second time, the Hamotzi Tefillah. So next time, hopefully in the next session, we will wrap up this whole section on Kiddush and make progress further. So I'd like to dedicate this to Lulun Shmat, Rabbi Leo D's wife, Leah, Lucy, and his two daughters, who left this world during Pesach in 2023. Wishing you all a good day, and please watch over the previous videos and share to others.